Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone's doing well. So unfortunately, I didn't want to make this video because I don't want to be accused of being, overly negative. And then like some people will say, "Oh, look at your earlier videos, like you're shilling Tesla." No, that's not the case at all. I'm trying to give people, I guess, like a more well-balanced view of things. So unfortunately, sometimes you have to show people like the good, bad, and the ugly. So yield max, like this is probably like their biggest hit in terms of, I guess, like asset gathering. But why do investors keep losing money? And that kind of bothered me for a while because I thought, well, maybe it's just like some regular NAV erosion and some return on capital. But there was always something about Tesla that I couldn't quite figure out until I took another look at the annual report. And as a wise investor, Panda Buffett once said, if you sit down at the ETF poker table and don't know who the yield is, you are the yield. So I know, this has been bothering a lot of people, and it's like the worst NAV erosion of my life. And I hate to joke like this, but this is like the worst NAV erosion so far. And I really hope it doesn't get any worse. Now, this might be like too clickbaity, but like I don't want to like throw around like the Ponzi scheme like phrase lightly, but it doesn't look good when you look at their actual like the annual report section. So again, this is just like straight from like their reporting. And if you look at like the line that says net increase decrease in net assets resulting from operations, I mean that's really bad. So this is kind of like an indication of like it's similar to like regular stocks. If you look at like the statement of cash flow from like operations, this would kind of sort of be like the similar thing. So this is just like from just like regular operations. So basically in Tesla's case, this is just like from them trading Tesla options and trying to sell like their covered call on the synthetic long strategy. So unfortunately for this time period, they lost like 2.28 like from like each share. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, like this is from like the distributions to shareholders. So if you look at this, like the first line is not too bad. It's like, you know, you lose like 14 cents each every time each month basically. But then when you look at the return of capital, this is like a buck 53. And then if you add everything together, it's like a buck 67. But then like your next question should be, well, if they're losing money from like operations, how are they paying out this money? And this is where the like I like I don't want to say it, but it looks like Ponzi-ish, but it's really not. It's just like I think it's just unfortunate timing, and there's also I guess because like there was like, a lot of hype like when it first started. So if you see this, like this is like the net increase decrease in net assets derived from net changes in outstanding shares. So it's almost like $1 billion, and then like if you subtract out that, like you're still left over with 678 million like worth of net assets. And it again, it's this is laid out for us like in black and white in the annual report. And I kind of wish I didn't look at it again, but again, like you have to like look at things from like a fair and balanced perspective. So unfortunately, there's like a lot of good, bad, and the ugly here, and unfortunately there's a lot of ugly. So in a way, it's good that there was a lot of investor interest, but it kind of it depends on who you are. So like if you bought like a Tesla when it was like $20 and you didn't do any like dollar cost averaging, you're probably hurting right now and it doesn't feel good. Even if you got like the distributions, like you're still net you're probably at like a net loss. So if you take all this like into account, like it brings it down like the at the time of like that, I guess like this ended like October 31st. So like the share price was around $15. So I guess it wasn't too bad at that time. But now, fast forward to January and in the future, it's kind of bad. So I'm trying to like struggle with like a good reason why this is happening. I think like people come to the markets for different reasons. Some people are rational and they like to make money, and then others invest for like the emotional and social reasons. And people are crowding into like popular investments. I think that explains part of it. So, and I hate to be like a D-bag, but like I guess like thanks for the bailout and donations to the Panda retirement fund. So, but there is some good news though. I don't want you to think that like it's all bad. Not all yield max like high yield ETFs have this issue. So then some of you are probably saying, well, so you're saying there's a chance that there's a recovery. Well, that's kind of like me saying like I slid into Sydney Sweeney's DMs and asked for a date. I mean, yeah, there's always a chance, but right now it's not looking good. I think Tesla has a better chance of recovery. I hope than me like getting a date with Sydney Sweeney. And I did make a video kind of highlighting like, well, there is a possibility of like a Tesla redemption arc, but even though it's possible, it's going to be really difficult. You need a lot of things to go right at the same time. So first, you need good volatility to return. So basically, you want call skew, positive call skew in Tesla's favor. So because right now, like across the board, like the volatility is kind of trending down, and I don't know. I guess like by the time this video comes out, maybe like the Tesla earnings will help a little bit. And then there's also, I guess, again, I guess like people wouldn't like crowd into investments and like kind of like look through and think through like your investment processes. And it would kind of be nice in a way if like demoralized like tourists leave also, but I'm not counting on it. I guess like another reason is that like, in modern times like people like humble bragging, especially on social media. People are like, oh, I'm making all this money and Tesla like you probably see like videos and TikTok and tweets and whatever. So I think it's kind of a shame. I think sometimes even as a YouTuber, I do want like some social proof and maybe like some extra like some some extra money. And I hope I haven't been like too hypey, but I don't think I have. I've been trying to kind of share like all the analysis as soon as I come to it. And I don't like it when people like sell fantasies. And then you're probably gonna say, well, Panda, you just made a video saying if you can live off of Defiance and Yield Max ETFs. And yes, I did use Triple QY and Tesla as an example. But again, those are just examples, and those were like, just to like illustrate what's possible. It didn't. I never said like, oh, well, if you take all your money and toss it into this one investment. No, I never say that. I always say, well, this is what it is, and just based on analysis, it's kind of like a what if situation, right? So, just I guess in general, be careful of who you listen to and just be careful of any market manipulation. I guess like the good thing about all this is that sometimes stupidity leads to inefficiency, but then that inefficiency also leads to arbitrage profits. So I don't want you to think that this is all bad because again, not like, depending on what ETF do you want to compare it to. Like let's like just use like TLTW as an imperfect comparison because this came out a little bit before Tesla. So like for example, Tesla came out around like December 2022, and I'm using estimated data, of course. So like just based on like the data of this recording on January 2024, like the estimated net asset value group growth was 189, thousand percent. So it looks pretty ridiculous. But remember, they started off as at a low asset, and then it got really popular, and then like you see like the share outstanding. Unfortunately, this is way bigger than like the asset growth itself. So unfortunately, there was a lot of like tourists like that kind of came in and like kind of crowd out people. So Tesla and Tesla is kind of messy because there's also like a few factors going on. So first you have like the regular NAV erosion, the manager performance, the return of capital, and then also you like just to add insult to injury, then you have a lot of people kind of like crowding into it, trying to get a piece of like that sweet distribution. and unfortunately, it kind of messes a lot of things up. And just to show you the performance against like TLTW, so it started like 3 months or so like before Tesla, and just to show you like just for a comparison, like the asset growth was only, I mean, this is still a pretty good like asset growth, like 4,000, almost 4,800% in a little over a year. And then they also have the same problem where like I guess like people kind of crowded into this as well. So the shares outstanding percentage like was faster than like the actual assets at 6,000, 6,500%. So just want to like tell you guys that it's not just a yield max or a Tesla issue here. Like other ETF providers also have or are susceptible to like the same issues. And just to like for the return on capital reading, I don't know how credible this person is. I just wanted to kind of share like another viewpoint because like at first when I was looking through like Tesla and other high yield ETF products, like I thought, well, maybe the return on capital might not be that bad, and it depends on the ETF. But then this person is mentioning that there's an impact on capital gains tax. So like, according to this person, return on capital distributions are not immediately taxed as income, so that's doesn't seem so bad. Instead, they reduce the cost basis of the investment. And this could lead to larger capital gains when the investment is sold. So it could potentially result in higher capital gains tax like later down the road. So for example, if like Tesla performs really well, like it gets up to like $15 or $18 or maybe even like back to 20 again, we'll probably have like a you know, capital gains tax to worry about, like if we decide to sell it. And then there's also like the tax treatment of excess return on capital. If the return on capital distributions exceed the investor's cost basis, the excess is considered a capital gain and is subject to capital gains tax. Again, I don't know how credible this person is. Like I'm not a tax advisor. Like even though I've took like accounting classes and tax classes, I'm not an expert. So, of course, if you happen to be a CPA or maybe a tax attorney and you know more about this stuff, like please definitely share in the comments section like your experience with this. I think the general like high yield community would kind of benefit too. And again, this is just my guess. Early investors that were sorry, I can't speak, dollar cost averaging all along and bargain bin shoppers kind of like me. Like I kind of took shots like when it was like 11 and I got filled at like one of my limit orders got filled at like 9.99. So I think I might be okay, but of course there's no guarantees. So well, we'll have to see. Like obviously, you want to make sure you have a pretty good diversified portfolio. You want to make sure like you have other income-based investments just in case like, you know, Tesla they decide to pull the plug on Tesla for whatever reason. Again, like the usual risks. Unfortunately, the high expense ratio kind of like adds to the issues. And of course, like since we don't have control over like the option strike selection, it's kind of stinks. Implied volatility could collapse, and obviously things can get really cheap. And of course, like yields won't be consistent month to month. So sorry about like this video might seem like kind of negative, but I wanted to bring you I guess more like a balanced take on this, like especially with Tesla and just like high yield ETFs in general. Of course, like everybody needs to be careful out there. So despite like Tesla, I hope everybody's like portfolio is doing okay. I still expect 2024 to be a pretty good year. So again, once again, I appreciate all my subscribers. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.